Good morning, Your Honor. Patricia Mandrnak for the people, P84088.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Neighborhood Defender Service of Detroit by Nancy Richards, P68850, appearing on behalf of Mr. Bartel, who is present via Zoom at Michigan Department of Corrections. Mr. Bartel, could you state your name?
Good morning, Your Honor. Eric E. Bartel.
Good morning, Ms. Richards and to you, Mr. Bartel. Ms. Richards, have you had an opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation report with Mr. Bartel?
Yes, Your Honor, I have. It is factually accurate as to the facts in regard to Mr. Bartel. There is one correction, which is to the jail credit time. Per the agreement, the jail credit should be 229 days.
Well, the pre-sentence investigator has indicated that the credit should not include the period from November 19th, 2024 until today, because Mr. Bartel is currently serving a sentence in the Michigan Department of Corrections that is unrelated. So is the number of days that you are asking to be credited including or excluding that period?
It does include that period because it was contracted between the parties in the sentence agreement that Mr. Bartel would get credit for those days time served, Judge.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Judge, but that is correct. And I would agree that defendant is entitled to 229 days credit for time served in this case per my math. In this case, the sentence agreement states that the parties agree that defendant is entitled to jail credit from 6/5/24 to 10/31/24, which it and from 11/19/24 until the date of sentencing.
All right.
And my math puts that at 229.
Okay. So my question then is, irrespective of the agreement, would it be a lawful sentence to give Mr. Bartel the credit for time served from that November date until now?
And Judge, my argument is that it would be. The plea agreement is a contract between the parties. It is not illegal to agree to a certain amount of jail credit. Additionally, although the pre-sentence report cites a case, it's hardly settled law. There's another case, People v. Chataway, that would, it's a very gray area of the law, and there's competing decisions that have not overruled each other. So I believe that contract law would sort of trump anything else here, as the parties have made this agreement and it is not an agreement to something that is illegal.
Do you agree, counsel?
Judge, I'll leave it to the discretion of the court.
I mean, do you agree with respect to the state of the law?
Your Honor, I'll be honest, I am not very well versed in that area of law.
All right, thank you. Well,
I can step out and consult with the supervisor if the court would like me to.
well, I will accept, as she's an officer of the court, Ms. Richards' understanding of the state of the law here. I would be inclined to agree, just off the top of my head, that if the inducement for the agreement was partly based on the number of days jail credit, that agreement should be upheld. I just don't want to be running afoul of the law if it in fact would run afoul of the law to give Mr. Bartel the jail credit from November 19th to 2024. But we do have both Mr. Bartel and Ms. Treaster with us now. And I had an opportunity to speak at our virtual sidebar with counsel regarding the state of the law on this issue of whether to award jail credit where the defendant is serving a sentence on another matter. And Ms. Vandernack, Ms. Treaster has an extensive victim impact statement. Would she like it read, or would she like to make a statement?
I believe she wants to make a statement to the court.
Okay. Ms. Treaster, would you like to make a statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Will you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this court will be the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You can lower your hand. Go ahead and tell me whatever you'd like me to know.
Okay. I struggled writing this because there's so much to say about my experiences with Eric. He truly did pull the wool over my eyes from the beginning. Over the past 10 years, I've watched this mask he wears slowly fall off. I was forced into a space of having no voice, as he said it was better that I was seen and not heard. This was the safest way for me to live with the erratic behavior that he would exhibit, even with our children around to witness it. It took me years to develop a plan and to find support to safely leave him. I had to have him hospitalized at Havenwick between his first and second DUI charges, and at that point is when everything downward spiraled. Stealing my truck the night I was trying to leave him after terrifying my oldest as he was trying to break into my truck before he disabled it, leaving me and my kids stranded. Then needing to call for legal assistance to get it back, showing up at my brother's house uninvited, as well as my parents' house, causing tension at a family event, threats of blowout fights. Staying him was not safe, leaving him was not safe. I was trapped in the terror that was Eric. I found myself weak for a couple months, allowing him back into my space because he was calm and actually helping me support our kids. But when I found my strength again, I moved, and he somehow found out where I lived. He sent numerous texts threatening to break in and to hurt my dogs after admitting to me that he was abusing Pandora, leaving her all day, then strangling her and throwing her into a cold shower if she had an accident to punish me. He damaged my vehicle twice while parked in my apartment complex, showed up with one of his friends to jump my now husband, creating a fake police report against him, tried to run me off the road numerous times, twice when I had at least one of our 2 children in the car. He called me and told me to watch my back, that he could end my life at any moment because I am the cause of all his problems. He never showed any care for the PPO I was granted, but he was smart enough to disappear quickly before he was physically caught breaking the terms of the PPO. I made so many police reports over that year, telling the officers that if he gets the chance, I would just become another statistic. Unfortunately, I was told there wasn't much they could do unless he was caught in the act. These events were additional to the texts in their police report that were entered into evidence for this case. He is apparently still continuously getting more violent, considering he is currently in prison for strangling his ex-girlfriend. I am thankful for all the times when he attempted to hit me, but was too drunk to walk, let alone to make his fist connect. He did, however, grab me once and throw me into a wall on a separate occasion prior to physically attacking me at a place of work we once shared. I watched his court date where he accepted the plea deal last week. I could tell how he answered the verification of facts questions, that he was frustrated, that he needed to say yes, admitting guilt, because I don't believe he feels he did anything wrong. The few months that he has been sentenced to before he reaches his first parole hearing, I do not believe is enough time to give him the space he needs to realize the magnitude of his actions. I fear with the credit for time served granted in his plea deal on this case, it will still not give him the sit down he severely needs. He is dangerous, and I truly believe that if given the opportunity, he will come to take my life because I had the nerve to leave him and to fight for the safety for myself and our children. For years, I fought tirelessly to hide my fear of him, always watching my surroundings, not wanting to be in public too long, angry with myself that I gave him that power over me. It wasn't until he went to jail in April that I was able to breathe. Then he was released for a month prior to his prison sentence, and what did he do? He messaged me on TikTok, then deleted his page within minutes, assuming I was not quick enough to save the proof. He will never stop coming after me every way he can. My wish and hope of this court is to find it appropriate for Eric to serve at least half of the max term of 5 years as indicated in his plea deal, not only for his continuous disregard for the law, but for the violent and physical, verbal abuse and threats towards me. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also indicate that there is a long, looks like email that's also included in the pre-sentence investigation report.
Yes, ma'am.
And it reads as follows. It's hard to find the words to describe the trauma I've endured by Eric. His chronic alcohol use and later added cocaine use created nothing but unsafety for myself and my children. The afternoon prior to having him involuntarily hospitalized, the cops were at our house because he was driving around the neighborhood drunk, but was not caught at that time. I came home to him intoxicated, loading his pistol to leave the house. When I tried to control the situation, he slammed me into the wall of our bedroom.
Would you mind to interrupt it? Yep.
Grabbed a hunting rifle, loaded that, and told me to leave so I can come home to clean his brains up. And if I did not leave, he would kill me too. That was when I knew I had no choice but to exit the marriage. At that point, he became outwardly verbally aggressive with me, nonstop texts and calls or showing up at the residence I had moved to uninvited. He also made verbal threats to me against anyone who helped me leave him, as well as showing up to my parents' house uninvited, knowing I was over there with our shared children. I have saved audio of my oldest expressing fear of Eric due to his elevated behaviors as well. As stated in my impact statement, there were a few months I gave in to his demands and tried to rekindle the marriage out of fear of what would not only happen to me if I didn't, but also fear of what could happen to my children. I tried my best to secretly secure an apartment, which he was able to find out that address almost immediately. He sent numerous texts and calls threatening me with either physical pain or death if I did not allow him into the building, threatened to destroy my vehicle, which he did damage twice, followed and berated me at a store to the point I had to run, hide behind clothing racks, grab my at the time infant and run to my car, threatened my dogs, and threatened to take our children and disappear. Every time I made a report or he had a visit from a police officer due to my reports, the threats got worse. When I obtained the PPO, he would disregard it every chance he could. He would drive around, and if he see me in my car, he would chase me and try to rear end me or pit roll my car. And there were 2 times he was traveling on the opposite side of the road and came into my lane to hit me head on. Also, as stated in my impact statement, 2 of these times, one or both of my children were in the vehicle for me, were in the vehicle. I think that was intended to say with me. This showed me he also had no care for the safety of our children. When he made the gesture of shooting me as he cut me off on I-94 before the Rosenville exit, it made me realize just how fast he could take my life and speed off like nothing happened. He drilled into me our entire marriage that he was a Marine, and because he went to Japan, he could claim PTSD and not be prosecuted for any murder, but made it a point during his harassment that he could do that to me as well. I have had numerous people report to me from a previously shared friend circle to stay constantly aware of my surroundings, that his intent to harm me, as it was a main topic of discussion by him. I did not want to believe that until I was sent a video file of him stating his intent on my life and how easy it would be for him. I shut down for years. I refused to leave my apartment unless I absolutely had to. I stayed in a state of panic all day while my children were at school and daycare in fear he would go take them. I did not sleep because every sound I heard, I thought it was him trying to break in, and I was barely eating because the anxiety left me feeling sick. The only time I have been able to breathe since 2020, when I left him, was when he was in jail periodically for his other cases. The fact he sounded so annoyed when answering the questions at his last court hearing, I know his level of hatred for me has only increased. My only peace right now, is him being detained because I can guarantee my safety and the well-being of my children. The fact that he took the time within 24 hours of his short release from jail in October of 2024 to send me a message on social media just proved he is not done terrorizing me. I fought for so long to be heard about how dangerous he is while fighting to stay strong for my children. I am exhausted. I am just now able to sleep all night, just able to handle eating a full meal without feeling like I'm going to get sick. I'm finally starting to get comfortable leaving my house again. Knowing he could be out of prison within the year at a time if this case also grants him the minimum sentence with the credit of time served added in it has created a sickening feeling I lack the capacity to put in words. He walked away from his kids when he refused to follow those court orders, refused to help support them. All they know is me as being the person who supports them. If he gets the opportunity and takes me away from them, I cannot stomach the damage my children will suffer from. They deserve safety in their world and to not always ask why we cannot go out, go on bike rides, ask why I always look all around me constantly while at a store or driving, and me having to protect the image they have left of him breaks me constantly. Tiffany Treaster. Ms. Treaster,
Yes, ma'am.
is all of what I just read true?
Yes, ma'am.
So I've read the pre-sentence report in its entirety. I was disappointed not to find any information about Mr. Bartel's upbringing. I found that perplexing. I don't know if I've ever seen a pre-sentence investigation report, particularly one that really is more or less an addendum, because he has been previously sentenced in the Washtenaw County case very recently, with any information regarding family, upbringing, employment, all of the things that are typically in a pre-sentence investigation report. But it's of no moment, because I am of the very strong conviction that Mr. Bartel should not receive the benefit of this deal. And so I'm going to allow him to withdraw his plea. And we'll set a trial date right now. We're looking for that date. I have to say, the refrain in my head was this very simple sentence: I was trapped in the terror that is Eric. Ms. Richards, I'm going to put you in a breakout with Mr. Bartel, because I don't want to assume that he wants to withdraw his plea. He very well may decide that he wants to accept the plea as is without the credit for time served.
I was going to ask the clarification on that.
I'm sorry.
The rest of the agreement is amenable to the court, just not the credit for that particular amount of time served.
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Bartel and Ms. Richards. So, Ms. Richards, have you had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Bartel regarding whether he wants to withdraw his
I
plea
have,
in
Your
light of-
Honor. And he does not wish to withdraw his plea. if the court is only going to modify it so that he does not get credit from November 19th.
Yes, that is what I intend to do. Okay, well, Mr. Bartell, you heard me say that I've read what was provided to me for your report. It's not a lot of information at all about your upbringing, which is important, as I'm sure you would understand. Given the information that I do have, you strike me as an intelligent person. You have a lot going for you, Mr. Bartell. You've earned an associate's degree. You're gainfully employed before your incarceration. You were honorably discharged from the Marine Corps. You have 2 children who I have no doubt love you dearly, although it seems that at least one of them has some very justifiable fear of you. And you admit that you have an alcohol problem, which is a big plus because so many people who do never get to that point, and because they don't, they never get to a point of recovery. Now, I heard and read your former wife's, Ms. Treaster's, victim impact statement. I believe every word of it. And the only reason that I read the second part, which she elected not to read, is because I wanted you to hear it. I imagine, Mr. Bartell, that when you were engaged in all of those terrifying acts against your now former wife, that you were simply trying to get your will accomplished. I doubt that you really considered at all the long-term and very profound emotional devastation that you caused for her and your children. And I say that I doubt that you gave that any consideration because what little I know about you would suggest that you're a responsible person and probably a person of conscience. But that brings me back to the alcohol. I would like to think that because you never addressed your alcohol addiction, that you caused all of this chaos, not just in your former wife and your children's lives, but in your own life. I would like to think that because you do have so many good things going for you, that the choices that you made in continuing to drink despite the negative consequences was because you couldn't help it. But you see, Mr. Bartell, it's not your fault you have an addiction or a chemical or alcohol dependency. It's not your fault, but it is your fault that you did not get any help for it. You have a very long record. And that record suggests countless opportunities for you to look at your alcoholism and address it. I know that no one is one-dimensional, and that at least for a good time, you and now Ms. Treaster cared about each other a great deal. It's that alcohol that I believe that you didn't address, that alcohol dependency, that caused your life to spiral out of control. And it's very unfortunate. But I'm heartened by the fact that, number one, you admit it. You admit that you have a problem. And number two, I've read that you're actively engaged in treatment for that alcohol addiction. That's a good thing. Because the sentence that you're going to serve is not one that's going to keep you in prison for the rest of your life. Relatively speaking, you'll be out in short order, probably a lot shorter than Ms. Treaster would feel comfortable with. But if you do the things that you're supposed to do in prison, if you actively and sincerely engage in the services that they're giving to you, you don't just go through the motions and stew about what Ms. Treaster has said about you, or the fact that she left you, or, blaming anybody outside of yourself. If you really use this time to rehabilitate, you will be welcomed back to the community. And I'm sure that your children would love to be able to have you as a part of their lives. And it can happen, but it is absolutely up to you. No one else's decision about this is going to matter, not even mine. It's your decision as to whether you want to redirect your life and help your children, especially, and your former wife to heal, and you to heal. So I'm hopeful. I'm going to adopt the agreement that you reached with people, which is that you will serve 1 to 5 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections. Mr. Bartell, you have 42 days from today's date to ask the Court of Appeals for permission or leave to appeal. And if you need the assistance of an attorney to do that, but you can't afford one, you'll need to ask this court within that 42 days. And we will appoint an attorney to you for that purpose. And for what it's worth, Mr. Bartell, I really wish you well. I'm rooting for you and your family. And Ms. Treaster, especially to you, ma'am. I wish you well, you and your children.
Your Honor,
and your
if
husband.
I may say one thing.
Yeah, actually, I didn't permit you to say anything, and I should have. I apologize. Go ahead.
It's okay, Your Honor. Recent events being here at MDOC, we're allowed quarterly what they call secure packs. And every 3 months, you're allowed to get $125 sent from your people on the outside for that of which it's indigent status because you can't receive funds here at MDOC in my account. Miss Treaster's husband, Matthew Treaster, and there's documented here at the quartermaster, sent me a secure pack for antifungal cream and messed up my quarterly secure pack. So I would ask that the court please take that into advice and, I don't know, get somehow that he cannot be sending me secure packs as I am not to be in communications with them.
Okay. Ms. Treaster,
Yes, ma'am.
can you confirm whether Mr. Treaster sent Mr. Bartell a secure pack or care pack?
I was not aware of it because I have directed my husband to stay out of things, but I don't have any control over him any more than I ever did of Eric. I will make sure that I talk to him and tell him that he better not do that again. I apologize.
Well, that was what I was going to request, that you speak to him, tell him that this was discussed before today, and that we would expect that he not be in communication with Mr. Bartell, just as Mr. Bartell is not to be in communication with you directly
Yes,
or
ma'am.
indirectly.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else for this record?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. I wish everyone well. We're off the record.
Thank you, Judge.
Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.